And here are the headlines that made the year 1982. January 11th to 17th, a brutal cold snap sends temperatures to an all-time record low in dozens of cities throughout the Midwestern United States.
February 27th, Wayne Williams is convicted of the murdering of two children and is sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms.
March 10th, the U.S. places an embargo on Libyan oil imports, alleging Libyan support for terrorist groups.
April 2nd, Argentina invades the Falkland Islands.
May 1st, the first of the 1982 World's Fair occurs in Knoxville, Tennessee, with over 100,000 people attending. An address given by President Ronald Reagan kicks off the fair, and 11 million people attend the fair during its 6-month run.
June 8th, President Ronald Reagan becomes the first president-chief executive to address a joint session of British Parliament.
June 21st, Prince William of England is born at St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, West London.
October 1st, in Orlando, Florida, Walt Disney World opens the second largest theme park, Epcot Center, to the public for the first time.
And November 30th, 1982, Michael Jackson releases Thriller, becoming the biggest selling album of all time. These are the events that made 1982. And in 2024, you're listening to XY PodCats. And we are back once again, the XY Podcasts. I am Scott, Gen X.
And I'm Sam, Gen Y.
And it is hot as the dickens here.
It got up to 96 degrees down here today.
It's still 90 here.
Feel like 109 in your room.
Yeah, it's probably... Oh, no, I'm sorry. The temperature dropped. It's 89 degrees now. I would prefer this than bitter cold winters, truthfully.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't stand wintertime, honestly. And it's just right around the corner.
You don't have to shovel anything in the summer unless you're shoveling compost.
Exactly. Shoveling out of the barn.
Right. Or shoveling children out of the house.
I got a couple of those. Do that right now.
Yes. Ours be grown, but we still have them hanging on. So 1982. That's the year you picked?
Yeah, this is the year I picked. It's also my oldest brother's birthday. His birth year. But I can honestly say my oldest brother, he if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today. So I wanted to do an episode for him. He saved my life multiple times, whether it be talking or physically saving my life.
Nice. Benchmark of a good big brother.
Perfect big brother. Couldn't ask for a better one.
I'm the older brother in my family, and I can say that I saved my brother's life several times when I decided to stop beating him when we were fighting.
Oh, we've had our squabbles, but man, if we didn't go through those, though, we wouldn't respect each other now, you know?
I get it. I get it completely understand it. I definitely love my brother.
Love mine to death. Take a bullet for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's your brother.
Mm-hmm.
But dang, my brother was ornery back. We were 4 years. I'm 4 years older than he is. And we had some knockdown dragouts where it was like, it was even. I didn't feel bad about a single thing I did because he was ornery, and he had all the good toys. You know, he had all the melee weapons. You know, there were toys back then called Mighty Mo's, and okay, I did have a Mighty Mo, but I never used it as a weapon. But he used his, and they gave him for Christmas the best weapon any kid could have. It was a Tonka toy, and it was called the Custom Van. And the Custom Van,
I might have heard something like that.
the Custom Van was like all die-cast metal on the outside, and it had a sunroof. So there was like a ready-made handhold. So the only thing he had to do was just grab it by the handle, and he could just wield it like a medieval shield. And
Projectile towards you with it.
That was definitely his weapon of choice. It's hard to believe looking back that the same mild-mannered, reserved man now was that same evil little. I mean, we're sitting at home one day after school, and he's just like, "I'm gonna pee on you," and I'm like, "No, you're not." And sure enough, a second later, I'm dodging streams of urine in the living room. It's like one day he
Oh
comes up to me with an
man.
empty Captain Black tobacco can, and he's like, "Yeah, smell this." And I'm like, "Well, okay, the can's empty."
Hmm.
And it smelled horrible. It smelled like flatulation. It was methane in the can.
Oh my gosh.
He canned his fart, sealed it up, and then walked it over to me and said, "Smell this." That's some devious stuff.
But you gotta love him.
I had to give him points for originality too, because if I'd have thought of it first, I would have done it.
Oh man, the worst thing that's happened between me and my brother was one morning. I'm sure I was being myself, and he chased me upstairs with a baseball bat. And I'm like 8 years old this time, and I locked myself in the bathroom door. And I called my mom at work, and I was like, "My brother's chasing me with a baseball bat. What do I do?" And she says, "Lock yourself in the bathroom and don't come out." I didn't know he had already went back downstairs, so I was in the bathroom for like 5 hours. And the only response I get is, "Well, at least you had water."
Valid. Ah, brothers. Well, I got to meet yours one day,
Oh yeah,
but
definitely.
he hatched in a pretty good year for entertainment. In '82, of course, I was still just a kid. I was just hitting puberty, but there was a lot of stuff by way of movies, some interesting TV, and for the day, the music was off the chain.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
So we're going to change things up just a little bit. And since there was so much rich material from that era, we're going to try to do a top five list. Or in the case of films, I actually have a top 10 list.
That sounds perfect. I have a top five if that's
That's fine. That's perfect.
all right.
So since you only have five, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first this time. I picked them from what I thought was the best, one through five, and opinions, just based on what you like. So my number one though was actually from my brother. He told me this was one of his favorite films. And E.T. Phone Home.
Okay. Yeah, that will show up on my list somewhere.
I think
By
it
the
was
way, it was the largest grossing film of 1982, and I believe it was re-released 3 or 4 years later in the theater. And
yeah, I saw
80, I
something like that.
think this might have been 85 or 86. I know this because I was working in the theater when it was re-released, and the theater was still packed.
So yeah, it brought in the money. It definitely brought in the money. And
No doubt.
I have three copies of this movie. I have the VHS, the DVD, and the unrated, I believe it was, or the director's cut. That's what it was. The
Okay.
director's cut version of it. I would say that does not have an unrated version to it.
I would admit that if there was an unrated version, I would have to go out and buy that just to see what they cut out of it. In order to get a PG rating, we had to cut out the scene where the kids dot dot dot.
We'll leave that one for the imagination.
Yes.
So number two is The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds.
You've seen this?
I have. It's a musical.
Yes. I I remember when it came out. I did not see it.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't. And I will the I have the weirdest reason for not having seen it. If it was something that held my interest enough, I probably would have gone back to see it. But
Hmm.
weirdly enough, when it first came out, there was a film critic. I think he's still alive, but he was pretty active back in the day. His name was Leonard Maltin. He was the resident critic on Entertainment Tonight. And I mean, I don't know that I always agreed with him, but I mean, especially for being, I would have been like maybe 12 at that point. So, but I just remember he gave such a poignant review on that movie, and I think he ended up giving it like a I don't remember what his rating scale was. I think it was a scale of 10, but he gave it something really low. And I remember specifically the phrase, it's tease, but no sex. And I'm like, huh. Now, why that resonated with me at that age makes absolutely no sense. But I guess I just got this impression in my mind that, well, it just must not be any good. So I never made it a point to see it. So
Well, I mean, it is Dolly Parton. She kept her acting classy, so it's really good. And Burt Reynolds is just hilarious in it.
there's no logical reason for me to not have seen it just
Yeah,
based on Leonard Maltin's review when I'm 12. But now that's the truth.
you should
So
check it out now, like soon.
if I could find it somewhere, I will.
All right. And number three, The World According to Garp with Robin Williams,
Wow. Now that one I did see, and
or
I
or as he likes to call himself, T.S. Garp.
what's the
Terribly
TS
sexy
stand
Garp.
for?
Terribly sexy.
Oh, terribly sexy.
Yeah. And there's something that happens in the movie. I forgot what it was, but the lady says, "So what does the TS stand for?" And he goes, "Terribly sad."
Yeah, I remember that too. It kind of a breakthrough role for Robin Williams, trying to show people that he could actually do more than just the stuff that he had done up to that point.
He did a fantastic job in it. It
You know,
was
he always
what was
did.
that one show? What's that one show he was on? Where he was the alien,
Mork and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy. Yeah, I believe that was before this movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Mork and Mindy was his breakout role. That was playing Mork is how the world found out who he was.
Yeah,
Because I mean he had been doing his stand up by that point, but Mork and Mindy was his.
I think this movie kind of just elevated it a little bit.
But yeah, he. I know I've always loved his work, and I do remember. Although at that point I probably had no busy business watching that movie at the age that I was. I do remember having seen it. I remember the car wreck in the driveway. If you remember that.
I remember that.
John Lithgow's line is like, I had mine surgically removed, but to have them bitten off. Oh my gosh.
That's just painstaking.
Oh, what's next?
Number four, the toy.
What? What? I've
Richard
seen the
Pryor.
toy. Yeah, I've
Richard
seen the
Pryor. Oh
toy,
yeah.
and Jackie Gleason, and they they certainly had good chemistry.
I
Uh,
think I think a while back I sent you up a DVD with the toy and Hear No Evil, See No Evil. It might be the other way around, but Gene Wilder.
yep, and I enjoyed that movie as well.
Oh yeah, that movie's one of my favorites.
Yeah, the toy was on cable when I was a kid, so it was one of those movies that when it came on, it just kind of ended up, playing till to the end. So I saw the toy several times,
Yeah.
and I remember being a kid and enjoying it. Although poor Scotty Schwartz, the kid who played Eric, he came to an unfortunate end. He died young.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a story to Google.
Okay.
But
And number five, Poltergeist, the original.
yeah, that shows up on my list. But yeah, Poltergeist moved the needle in a big way.
Talk about scary.
Yes.
One of the freakiest parts is when the little kid's up against the TV and she says, "They're here." Like, what's here?
There's a lot of scenes in that movie that just make your skin crawl, but the two that do it for me more than any other
Mhm.
is, and it's part of the same sequence, like the meat just crawling across the counter and then it just
Yeah.
explodes with maggots. I'm like,
Yeah, that part made my daughters jump.
and then when the guy goes in the mirror and he tears his face apart in front of the mirror,
Yeah.
how that movie managed to not get an R rating with just that in it, because I think it was PG-13.
I think back then they had more of a lenient R rating.
Man tore his face off, but anyway. Yeah, like I said, Poltergeist, and unfortunately, the sequels don't hold a candle to it.
No, not at all.
Nor does the remake. As much as I love Sam Rockwell, but that's the Poltergeist was a movie that should have just been one and done. No
Yeah,
sequels, no
exactly.
remakes, just leave it alone.
Just finish it up, call it one, and then
So,
re-release it in theaters 40 years later.
there you go. Well, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I'm pretty sure a lot of that would still hold up because back then you had to do most of that stuff practically. There was no CG, there was no digital, computer generated anything,
Hey, you just had to work with what you got.
and they had to be much more clever about it.
Well, they did good. That should have been higher than five, but
No, there's a lot of good stuff in
yeah.
82. So I'm going to try to remember how I have my things ranked. So um, I'll try to go quickly. So I have a top 10. So
All right, let's get to it.
so on my top 10,
Hmm.
I'll start off with the lowest at number 10, and that will be Tron with Jeff Bridges and Bruce Boxleitner, David Warner. So it's about a computer hacker that is actually kidnapped into the digital world and forced to participate in gladiatorial games. And his only chance of escaping is by teaming up with a program named Tron. And it was a
Yeah.
Disney movie, and at the time it was it was groundbreaking. And I mean, perhaps it doesn't hold up now, but back then it was pretty cool.
Didn't they do a Tron 2049? I think it is.
They did a Tron Legacy that came out in 2010.
Yeah, I knew they made some more. I didn't know if it was like a continuation of that story from back then or if it was a
There
whole
were
new.
there was a video game which would have been kind of cool if it stayed canon. It was called Tron 2.0, but it didn't follow the Flynn. Flynn was referenced in the game.
Hmm.
Flynn, it was Jeff Bridges' character, the lead character from the films, but it focused more on Alan Bradley, who was actually the person who wrote the Tron program,
Okay.
Bruce Boxleitner's character. And in the game, you play his son, Jet Bradley. So Jet's in the world of the computer, but Jet's a lot more powerful than the human beings were in the era of the original Tron. But I liked the game. I liked it a lot. I played it a few times, but it didn't remain canon when Tron Legacy came out. It shifted back to Jeff Bridges' character, and Garrett Hedlund played his son. And then they also used the computer technology of that day to create a younger Jeff Bridges playing his program Clue. And the CG wasn't quite there, with the de-aging,
Yeah.
because there were times where it resembled Jeff Bridges, but then it just looked like this guy who kind of looked like him, but
Kind of like the Lara Croft Tomb Raider games. It just kind of looked like her.
kind of, yeah. But I mean, worth the watch. But yeah, so Tron was 10. Number 9 was Taps. Now, Taps is one of those movies that was kind of a who was going to be big, like in the coming decades. So
Hmm.
Timothy Hutton was the lead. Sean Penn was his friend. There was this crazy red beret instead of a green beret because it's based on a military academy, like a
Okay.
school. The premise is like these military cadets actually seize weapons to hold their school by force because land developers are trying to shut it down so that they can build condos. So they hold the school by force. And Timothy Hutton is the ranking cadet. So he actually is essentially their military commander. And Sean Penn plays his kind of his best friend, and Tom Cruise plays David Shawn, who's just a nut. He runs the Red Berets, who are like their elite version of the Green Berets, I guess. But it was one of the best things I've ever seen a young Tom Cruise do. But I remember my older friend took me to the movies to go see that, and it made an impression.
So good choice. I wrote that one down actually because I want to see it now.
So number 8 would be Blade Runner. So Blade Runner kind of became more significant to me as I got older. But when I first saw it back then, I was probably like most people. I was like, this seems a little boring to me. But
Hmm.
the cultural significance and a lot of the more subtle themes became evident as I got older. So I guess
Mhm.
numbers was we on 6? Poltergeist.
Poltergeist. Yeah, mine
That's
was at 5, so it's very close.
that's really all we need to say about that. Number 5 would be First Blood.
Ooh, yeah, Stallone.
Stallone, the one that started it all. Yep, First Blood.
No, no, that was kind of a good movie.
Was that your Stallone?
That was yeah, my Stallone.
It wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. It was kind of a good movie.
Yeah, yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
Oh, I like that movie. It's a good movie.
So I'll say following up with number 5 would be Rocky 3.
That's another good movie. I
Yo,
watched all the Rockies and the Creeds with my oldest daughter.
yeah, when you put those back to back, that's a lot of hours of movies to
Oh
watch.
yeah, did it in 1 week.
So, but yeah, Rocky 3, Mr. T, Clubber Lang.
I pity the fool.
Number 4 is got to be 48 Hours.
8 hours. I haven't seen it.
Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte.
Doesn't ring a bell.
That was Eddie Murphy's first film,
Oh wow.
and it was the movie that by any um it definitely showed that he was going to be a box office demigod.
Yeah,
He
the
was
dude doesn't age.
he doesn't, but he was still on SNL at that point, and him and Nick Nolte, first of all, they had great chemistry. They played character. It's a you have to see 48 Hours. Now, at when I saw it back then as a kid, I was astounded. I was astonished how many times the F word could be crammed into a film. I had never seen a movie that had more profanity than that movie up to that point. There might have been more, but I didn't know of one. They were throwing F bombs left and right. And I love the
Worse than
fact,
Samuel L. Jackson.
oh yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Samuel L. Jackson like cut his teeth watching this movie. But it was really smart. It was slick and it was gritty. And these characters these were not guys that you like. They played these guys gritty and real, and it was certainly wasn't the first cop buddy movie, but it was the first one that was like this one. If you get a chance to see 48 Hours, you have to see it.
Okay. I wrote that one down as well.
Okay. So 3,
3.
Airplane 2, the sequel.
I watched the first one, but I haven't seen the second one.
I'll say that if it wasn't for the first one, the second one wouldn't even be worth your time. The second one, by comparison to the first one, isn't really worth your time. But when I was a kid, I didn't care. They I wasn't critical minded. They recycled a lot of the same jokes. Leslie Nielsen's not in the second one, unfortunately, but
Okay.
William Shatner is. And, it still has, meaningless shots of naked women running across the screen for absolutely no reason. If you can find it and you have a few hours to kill, go ahead and watch it. Number 2 is, in my mind, one of the best horror films ever, The Thing.
The Thing. Oh, that was a good. Yeah, I've seen that one.
That movie still holds up, and all those effects are practical. And then number 1, once again, because this is my list and it's our podcast, and if you don't like it, you can get your own podcast.
Great your own top 10.
Exactly. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
I'm done.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, considered to be the best Star Trek film ever. Did pretty decent at the box office that year also. And My friend's oldest brother was in it. My childhood friend growing up, his oldest brother was in Hollywood actually working as a stuntman. And he didn't have a speaking part, but I guess he would be what was called a featured extra. He actually shows up in a brief close-up and towards the beginning of the movie.
Oh
And
wow.
he's present throughout the movie.
Yeah, so that would be a good number one right there.
Oh yeah. There was a write-up about him in the newspaper back when the film was coming out. So, and I was already a big Star Trek fan, even then. So it was just kind of really cool that my friend's brother was actually going to be in the movie. And but the movie itself was actually good. It was arguably the best of the Star Trek movies. So that's my
Yeah.
top 10 film list.
Wasn't someone else in a movie that I know? Um,
Mm, don't do
you.
it. Don't do it. Uh,
You
yes,
was in
but
a movie.
yes, but we're not doing that year. When we do that year, we'll talk about that movie. That's
Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Were you able to scarf up any TV shows from 82?
I was. I've got a top five on them also.
Fantastic. Lay it on me.
I didn't watch a lot of the 80s shows, but I remember I've caught like a couple episodes of each. And I'll go ahead and start with number one, Knight Rider. And what I loved about Knight Rider was I watched a lot of Boy Meets World,
Mm-hmm.
and Mr. Feeney was the car
Yes.
kid. Yeah.
Yes, that is true. There'll be another tie-in to William Daniels on my list.
That's one of the didn't they make a movie, a Knight Rider movie?
They did.
Yeah, so I thought so. Okay, number two, TJ Hooker. I haven't watched it. I might have watched an episode of it, but my mom, that's one of her favorite shows. She told me about it.
Okay. That'll show up on my
And
list as well.
well,
As will Knight Rider.
oh man. Maybe the next three won't. So we got Cheers on number three.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of sitcoms like Roseanne and Fresh Prince. So Cheers has to be up there with it. Number four, Inspector Gadget, the cartoon,
Okay.
not the real life. I did watch a few episodes of Inspector Gadget growing up.
I did as well.
Yeah.
Inspector Gadget had one of the coolest theme songs of any cartoon.
Da 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 da.
Inspector Gadget.
Da 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 da. And then the spinny thing comes out of his hat.
Yep.
And the last one is next on 60 Minutes.
Really? That was back in the Andy Rooney days.
Right.
You ever notice how TV is just packaging?
I watched a couple episodes of it yesterday, 60 Minutes, and then I YouTubed it today. I watched the 1982 versions of 60 Minutes, and it's so different.
Oh yeah.
They still have the clicking at the beginning though. The tick-tock, the ticking.
Yeah, the news shows from those days to now are the formats are really different. 60 Minutes is still pretty much content wise what it used to be,
Yeah.
but like 2020 was also out in those days, and 2020 has just become pretty much true crime fodder. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
60 Minutes is probably the closest to what it used to be.
1982, I watched that episode, one of the episodes from 1982, and it was they're talking about passing a Coors, like the beer Coors, trying to get it legalized in most of the states.
Yeah. Well, the show was different because times were different.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about legalizing weed.
Well, there's plenty of that around.
Yeah. So, from for my top five TV picks, and once again, I'll try not to run my mouth. So for TV, my number five pick was Tales of the Gold Monkey, which is just basically a Raiders of the Lost Ark ripoff. But the guy had a plane and took place in the 1930s. So number four
Hmm.
would also be TJ Hooker. And I did watch TJ Hooker. I think I watched every episode. And why wouldn't I? Because William Shatner played TJ Hooker.
Which is also Star Trek, right? Was it Star Trek?
He's Captain Kirk. So
Yeah.
yes, but the the characters were different, even though they both talked the way William Shatner talked. So instead of Mr. Sulu laying a course, it was like, all right, punk, you lie to me, and you're not going to get out of here. You deal with me, and you walk. It's I had a really good TJ Hooker impersonation when I was a kid. At least I thought it was good. So, but next one is Saint Elsewhere. So there goes that Knight Rider tie-in again because William Daniels played one of the senior doctors on Saint Elsewhere, which was one of the first hospital shows from the early 80s. And it launched a few careers. You'll see Edward Begley Jr., David Morse. These names may or may not mean anything to you, but you will know Howie Mandel,
Oh yeah, household name.
and you'll also know Denzel Washington.
Has he ever made a bad movie?
Well, this was where he had actually made a few films before he ended up on St. Elsewhere, but this was the show that this is where he kind of became a household name himself. And he was on all of the seasons of the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, William Daniels was in that as well. So the next would be Knight Rider. I believe, if I remember correctly, Saint Elsewhere was on the air the same time as Knight Rider was. So William Daniels was collecting two paychecks at that point.
Oh wow. Wouldn't that be nice?
So, and then we'll wrap it up with one of the most underrated TV shows, at least as a TV show, but certainly at the end of the day, not underrated because it spawned a series of movies, and that would be Police Squad. So let's just say that the perp came through the window. The perp came through the window. And let's just say, is this some kind of bust? Yes, it's very impressive, but we have more important matters to tend to.
Oh God.
Uh, so those are my top five TV picks. I feel like I'm miscounting.
No, you had the top five.
That was
But there's
five, right?
yeah, that was five, but it feels like there should be more.
Well, there was definitely more from the 80s, but not all of it was worth my attention.
Right.
Um, but music, what's going on with the music?
No, there's a lot going on this year with mu music. I almost said music, but
Well, you just did.
no, I meant to say music. I said music, like
Music.
music. What's going on with the music? So I can't pick a top five for this. This is just off the top of my head, and I'm looking at you know, there's so many good things about this music this year. But I'm gonna ask you, have you heard Eminem's new song Houdini?
I have not.
Well, he sampled a Steve Miller Band song called Abracadabra.
And that song I know very well.
Yeah, the Abracadabra. That's also in his new song. But that's my top. It's one of my favorite songs from Steve Miller Band was Abracadabra before I found out about Houdini.
Hmm.
So my next pick, I'm gonna do five of them if that's all right.
Okay.
Uh, my next pick would have to be A675-309 by Tommy Tutone.
I know it well.
Oh yeah, household song. And then you'll really know this one, Eye of the Tiger by Survivor.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
That would
What
have
is
been
that?
on my list.
That's what is that, three?
No, that's two. Well, unless one of your picks was The Abracadabra by Steve Miller Band.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my picks.
Okay, so then you're up to three.
Okay, my fourth one is Rosanna by Toto.
Okay, nice.
And my last one will have to be Keep the Fire Burning by REO Speedwagon.
Mm, good picks. I will definitely concede.
Thank you, thank you.
So I won't pick Eye of the Tiger since you picked that one.
Oh, and that song gets played like 90 times a day here.
But and keeping it to five is just going to be impossible. But I'm gonna do it anyway. So just because it was a landmark song for me at the time, having been alive when it was around, and at this point we didn't see these types of pairings happening often. I'm gonna have to pick Ebony and Ivory by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder.
Oh, that's such a good song.
Yeah, it is. My number two pick is just once again, it plays right into my contemporary music tastes, is the theme from Chariots of Fire by Vangelis. It actually got radio play.
Okay.
So number three, once again, was played on the radio and played in our house, is Let It Whip by the Daz Band. So, and if you haven't heard it, you can definitely YouTube it.
And this is way before the Nene.
Yes, you've probably, I'm sure, given your musical tastes, I'm sure you've heard it.
I'm sure I have to. I'll just have to give it a hear.
Do I Do by Stevie Wonder,
Perfect.
because it was a really cool video. He actually had Dizzy Gillespie in the video playing trumpet, and
Hmm.
Stevie Wonder very rarely does any wrong. Get Down on It by Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'm sorry, by Cool and the Gang, rather.
Okay. I was really close to seeing Earth, Wind, and Fire in concert.
That would have been a show.
Yeah, it would have. And it had what's his name? Lionel Richie
Oh,
with him.
really?
Yeah, yeah, it was him and Earth, Wind, and Fire and a few guests.
That will be. I was never a big live music fan, but there are a few bands or a few acts that I regret that I won't ever see. Earth,
Yeah.
Wind, and Fire is definitely one of them. I mean, even though I think they're still out there, but Maurice White is has passed. His brother has also passed, so there's a lot of original members that aren't with them anymore. And also, I really slept on seeing Prince in concert. Prince put on a show.
Oh, have you seen the movie Purple Rain?
Oh, of course, I
Oh
saw
man.
that in the theater.
Yeah, he put on a show.
But I mean, if you've ever talked to anyone who's actually been to one of his concerts, he was supposedly just uncontained. There's a clip from one of his live shows, like in the early 2000s. It was from the Rainbow Children album, but there was a cut off of that album called One Plus One Plus One is Three, which was kind of a bit of an upbeat tune off of the album. But there's a live performance of him doing it, and I don't know, he's got like a 10 piece on stage. Sheila E is on drums. He's got Maceo Parker on sax and another guy playing sax. And he's just jamming for like 11 minutes. And he's doing his guitar thing because he played guitar. He's one of the best guitar players in the history of guitar players.
Yeah.
But I mean, even just in that clip, you can just see the showmanship, and it wasn't like he was more mature by that point. He was fully dressed, just kind of like wearing like I don't remember what color the suit was. I think he was just wearing a black suit. But I'll have to, if I can find that clip on YouTube, I'll send it to you. It's worth a watch.
Yeah, for sure.
But that brings us to the end already.
Goes by quick. Oh, you'll never believe what happened to me today.
I can't wait to hear.
Oh, we went swimming today. I took my two daughters. My mom went with me. My niece went. And I was teaching my youngest, she's 7. I was teaching her how to float on her back, right?
Hmm.
Well, these two kids decided it was a good idea to start throwing this hacky sack looking thing, and it hit me in the face. Okay, so I just handed it back to him. I say, just watch what you're doing. And then it almost hit my daughter twice, and then it almost hit me again. So I chucked the hacky sack to the deep end.
I was so afraid that this story was going to end with like the police being involved.
Oh no. I just told the kids I was like, hey, just stop throwing it towards us. You have this huge like Olympic sized swimming pool and we're over here just trying to float. You know?
Sometimes some kids just want to watch the world burn.
I'm glad I'm this age now and I just chucked it to the deep end because if I was younger with no kids, the police might have been involved. Just keep an eye on your kids, people.
Right. It's really not that hard.
Like,
Yeah, things were parenting was different when we were kids. That's for dang sure.
oh yeah, I'd have been snatched up out of that water.
Um, I mean, and back in my day as a kid, you could have gotten snatched up by any one of the neighbors. They would have beat your behind and then told your parents, and then you got your behind beat again when you got home.
Double the trouble.
There was none of this lipping off to the teacher in school.
Nope.
Yeah, you got paddled back in school when I was in grade school.
Oh, 6th grade, I got threatened with it.
I remember I was in was it first, second, or third? Well, first, second, or third grade. I remember seeing Mr. Geekus. You know what Bluto looks like from Popeye?
Yeah.
That's exactly what Mr. Geekus looked like, except he wore a suit. I'm dead serious. He even had a big bushy beard, big gigantic, and he wasn't a nice man either. It was he was and he well, he just strutted through the schools. I mean, I don't know what kind of a person you have to be to power trip off of being the principal of an elementary school and scaring the daylights out of little kids. But I will never forget we were at recess. I'm thinking it was first grade, but we were at recess on the playground, and in the distance on the baseball field, we could see gigantic Mr. Geekus paddling some little kid for doing who knows what.
Oh wow. So you're kind of like, I want to go around that guy.
I'm just saying it was a different age. Could you imagine
Yeah.
could you imagine anyone trying that now?
He would have been locked up today.
Yes. They would have called a wet team in on him. By the way, folks, we are going to be off next Friday, but we will be back the following week.
This will give you a good chance to catch up on any episodes that you might have missed.
It's time for our message to the kids about liking and subscribing.
All right, yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and don't let your meatloaf.
Really?
I thought you would like that one. There's the sigh.
So this is my life now. Well, with that, I'll say X.
Why?
See you later. And we're out. You're so nasty.
I'll do it for you.
Don't do me no favors, please. I want my mother to listen someday.
Hi, Mom.